Ahoy there, speculative pirates, Pastafarians, and ye seekers of sacred carbohydrates. Welcome aboard. I be Captain Dread Pirate Higgs, humble host for the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster of British Columbia, and licensed purveyor of spiritual marinara. If you be new here, this be a Pastafarian sermon served up weekly, devoted to the praise and glory of our Lowly Lord, wherein we explore life, spirituality, philosophy, and other matters of importance, such as whether or not pineapple belongs on pizza. And for the record, no toppings are forbidden by the monster. So don your colanders and tricorns with pride, fill your goblets with grog, arm yourselves with the instruments of consumption, and let the spiritual feasting begin. Ahoy, jolly Friday, me mates and fellow Pastafarians. Today I'd like to bring you up to date on an ongoing dispute between myself, the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster of British Columbia, and the Insurance Corporation of British Columbia. As many of you know, I've been seeking the same accommodation that ICBC grants to certain other religious believers when obtaining government-issued identification. Specifically, I have sought permission to wear religious headwear in my driver's license photograph. Recently, ICBC sent me yet another letter denying that request. Now, before I say anything further, I want to be fair. I want you to hear ICBC's position in their own words. The letter begins, quote, "The head covering you wore on April 22nd, 2026 was again deemed unacceptable for printing on a BC driver's license, BC identification card, or BC services card." So, right from the outset, the answer was no. The letter goes on to acknowledge that I identify as a Pastafarian and member of the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster. So, let us be clear. ICBC is not accusing me of insincerity. They are not claiming that I'm pretending to be a Pastafarian. The issue appears to be in the next paragraph. ICBC writes, quote, "ICBC's religious head covering policy endeavors to accommodate customers wearing head coverings when their faith prohibits them from removing covering for BC identification purposes." And later, quote, "We do not recognize you as a member of a religious group that requires accommodation." That statement is the heart of the dispute. Think carefully what it means. ICBC is not simply verifying identity. ICBC is evaluating whether a particular religious practice is sufficiently mandatory to qualify for accommodation. And that raises an important question. Who decides which religious practices are important enough? Who decides when a religious obligation is mandatory enough? Who decides whether a person's religious expression deserves protection? Because once government agencies begin making those decisions, they have stepped well beyond identification policy and into theology. Now, what makes this especially interesting is that not all government authorities appear to use the same standard. Recently, I renewed my Canadian Firearms license. Initially, my photograph was questioned because I was wearing my tricorn hat. When I explained that it was being worn as a part of my religious practice as a Pastafarian, the issue was resolved and the license was renewed. That experience prompted me to look at the publicly available photo policy of the Canadian Firearms Program. What I found was fascinating. The RCMP's published guidance permits head coverings worn daily for religious beliefs, provided that the individual's faith remains fully visible and identifiable. Notice what is absent. The policy does not say that the religion must require the head covering. It does not say that the applicant must prove the practice is mandatory. It does not say that government officials will determine whether the religion is sufficiently authentic. The focus is on religious belief and successful identification. ICBC, by contrast, appears to apply a different test. According to its letter, the relevant question is whether the faith prohibits removal of the head covering. Those are two very different standards. One asks, is this religious headwear that still allows identification? The other asks, does this religion require the accommodation strongly enough? And that difference is precisely why I believe this issue deserves judicial scrutiny. If one government authority can accommodate religious headwear without becoming the arbiter of theology, why cannot another? Why should a driver's licensing agency be placed in the position of deciding which religious obligations count and which do not? These are not merely questions about a tricorn hat. They are questions about equality before the law. They are questions about freedom of conscience. They are questions about the limits of government authority. For that reason, I am pleased to report that Vancouver lawyer Brahm Dorst of Logicalaw has agreed to assist me on a pro bono basis in pursuing legal action arising from ICBC's decision. The challenge will raise important questions concerning the freedoms protected under Section 2 of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, including freedom of religion and freedom of expression. To be clear, I'm not asking government to endorse Pastafarian theology. I'm not asking government to agree with my beliefs. What I am asking is much simpler. If government chooses to accommodate religious expression, it should do so in a manner that is consistent, principled, and equally available to all Canadians. Because freedom of religion is not truly tested when it protects familiar beliefs. It is tested when it protects unfamiliar ones. If freedom applies only to the religions that government already understand, then it is, well, not really freedom. It is permission. And permission can always be withdrawn. So, the fight continues. Not because of a colander, not because of a tricorn, but because of a principle. The principle is simple. Does government get to decide whose conscience counts? I intend to continue pursuing every lawful avenue available, and I will continue keeping Pastafarians and supporters informed as developments can occur. Until next time, keep your noodles al dente, keep your minds open, and remember, a freedom that protects only the ordinary is not much of a freedom at all. Ramen. Aye, and goodbye. If you've enjoyed today's sermon, or it has at least given you a hankering for pasta, consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and sharing it with a friend who could use a little more carbohydrate-based philosophical perspective and saucy theological inspiration. New sermons arrive every Friday, God willing, because our monster appreciates a degree of regularity and plenty of leftovers. Until next time, may you be touched by his noodly appendages, sated by his zesty sauce, and cradled in his comfy colander.